This is the main podcast with Carrie and Evan. This week's guest is Dan from La Coco Nostra.
Hey everybody, it's Carrie with the main podcast. Want to thank you for listening to us for the past year and a half. Your support, interest, and friendship has been a great blessing on us, more than we ever expected. Want to thank our sponsors of the main podcast currently: La Coco Nostra, Treeline Cannabis, Wisely Cannabis, Corporal Cannabis, Men, Dunny Gummy, Cure, Rugged Roots, and Watered Roots. It is because of their contributions to the main podcast that we can continue to give you this type of information about the Maine cannabis scene. Thank you.
I want to talk a little bit about, your entrance. You obviously said that you moved from Connecticut to Maine. Right?
Yes.
Was that your step? Now, was it because of cannabis?
You know what? I went to school in New Hampshire, Keene State, and was in New Hampshire for 4 years. And I loved it up there. It's just a little slower pace than where I am in Connecticut.
Yep.
So when I came home, went back to work, ran into a friend from college. We ended up dating. And a couple years into Connecticut, we were both like, hey, maybe it'd be cool to try somewhere different. We've both traveled a lot. We were like, if we don't like it, we just come back home. And she found the place over near LL Bean, was like, hey, do you want to do it? And I gave her all the credit in the world because I followed, but she picked it out and found the place, and it led to where I am today.
Now, how long after you moved to Maine did you start growing?
Right away.
Oh, right away?
Right away, yeah.
You had been growing before.
I had been growing before. I was in Connecticut, had just a small garden. I mean, like most people, It was too expensive or not good enough, and I was tired of paying for it. So I said, shoot, I'm going to try this myself, and it just snowballed.
Yep.
But once you got to Maine and I was able to have a little more legal freedom, I was able to experiment and play around a little bit more.
Yeah.
Did it feel like legal freedom in a sense? Because I want to say even maybe 2012 to 2017, you never quite knew as a caregiver, if something was going to happen.
I do think, it was probably pretty sketchy for a lot of people, because it probably a lot of people made money though too, because while some were sketched out, others were like, hey, we're doing it legal, run with it, and they were going all guns blazing and doing the things that we're doing now as far as, immediate family can share, certain aspects of the cultivation facilities and stuff like that. Those guys were doing it right from the beginning because they found these weird loopholes and stuff like that, or, maybe not that exact instance, but something like it. So I do think in 2012 and 17, it was a weird time for sure.
Yeah, I pretty much acted as if I still lived in Connecticut. Didn't really talk or say anything, and it was hard to break that shell, to be honest. You grow up in Connecticut, and it's not the friendliest
You don't know
state.
anybody already, sort of.
And you're saying Connecticut wasn't really cannabis friendly?
Not at all.
Yeah.
So when I come here, and like you were saying, there was guys doing things where so openly that I was like, you're crazy, even though it's legal.
Right.
It took me a long, long time to, like I said, get out of that mode and be a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah, you had to unthink and untrain yourself from everything that you'd always learned as a survival, honestly, right?
Nailed it on the head, exactly.
Yeah, that's the way it felt. I remember when I got into growing, it was 14, and I felt comfortable enough, but yet I felt like any time I was inside the grow, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody would have come to the door. And there wasn't a lot of knowledge back then either. Not the same streams we have now.
I think a lot of that, though, the paranoia and stuff is definitely fueled by the past history. Yeah, sativas one. But I also think the past history of cannabis and everything we saw on TV was even go back to the base of a GTA video game or whatever, the old story, any of the old movies. It's always some guy growing weed, making a lot of money, and the feds raiding him or something like that, or selling drugs, and it's always kind of associated. So I think even though there was a legal framework, it always felt I have this feeling in the back of my head like this shouldn't be legal, you know, even though I'm doing it. And I think
Are you saying we have a hard time trusting police?
yeah, I think that's for sure. But also too, I think that the federal and state difference really is what's kept a lot of people from doing it until it's gotten to the scale of that it is now, where they feel like, okay, clearly the feds aren't targeting legal operating businesses. You know, there's just no, I mean, it maybe in some instances they are a little bit egregious with how far they go with their reach to some people, but it seems like if you're falling within the framework, you're able to operate without much interference.
Part of opening up too was those guys that were doing things that I thought were maybe pushing the envelope on things. It was like, I'm not doing anything nearly as crazy as them. What the hell am I worried about, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah. The next, it's like, okay, I don't have to be worried because of the next guy. You know, that guy, but the next guy is bigger than me. So
the feds weren't coming to my house for 50 plants when there's 10,000 maybe a few towns over. You know what I mean? I don't know.
When did you start learning more? You said you kind of kept to yourself. When did you start learning more about other people out there in the industry, or what's become like an industry, or the caregivers? You know what I mean? That's been relatively new, isn't it? It sounds so simple,
but you go to the hydro store, you know what I mean? Oh. And you end up talking to people there. It was really funny. What
would have been down your way? Which one?
Well, when I lived in Freeport, I would go down to Portland all the time.
Yeah.
The store I went to is not open anymore, but the owner of that store was like, hey, you need to meet my friend. You know, he was like, hey, you got a really nice products. Like, come meet my friend. I meet his friend. His friend lives 5 houses down from me, is my neighbor. And he introduced me to people. You know what I mean? And it kind of just snowballed. Like I said, I'm not afraid to talk to people or whatever. It was just like telling them about everything. As far as being social, making friends, I think I can do that.
Easy
you know
enough.
What I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's been second nature for you. That's who you are.
You're way in a bolt. Like, you want to make friends, but you also want to keep that part of your life private because
it needs to be.
Yeah, you don't want, you know, people have big mouths, talk easy. Somebody can break in. Someone, you know what I mean? Just people see opportunity in it, and you got to watch out sometimes.
Yep. No, I'm sorry. When you started growing, you were growing in the house, and is that still where you're growing now?
So right now we moved from Freeport, and I bought a house with a couple acres, and I explored the idea of leasing and renting a space. I just couldn't do it with those triple N leases. I just thought these things are crazy. So I decided to just put up the money, live super poor, and build a barn on the property.
Yep.
Nice.
And now, you know, when you have kids, you don't want that stuff in the house. Like, right? You know what I mean?
You had to start thinking about that too a little bit, right? How it was going to impact you, like right here at home, right there at home.
Yeah, no, I just remember you were saying something to me at one point. I think about how you were growing at home, or it was at your house, and I was trying to decipher.
I grow on my property, but in a different dwelling on the property.
That's almost. I feel like I talk to a lot of people, and they're like, "Oh, if I could live in my grow, how good I would." Do you think that has kind of helped you in a sense to keep a consistent quality, being so close to the fact that you can always tend to it, so on and so on? You know.
I mean, I try to keep a nice family work schedule. So try to do 8 to 9 to 5. Come home, dinner, hang out with the kids, read bed. Come 8 o'clock. It's nice for me to just walk over to my grow, check on things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Hey, 10:30 at night, I forgot something. Let me go walk, 200 yards and check up on everything. So it has been a blessing in that way of keeping quality control up.
It was a good idea then to build barn.
Well, just even little things like an alarm goes off on your phone.
You're right.
I don't got to drive 30 minutes somewhere. You know what I mean? I'm right there to fix the problem.
Yeah, and there's some people I know, and no discredit, because I know they said that's the only place I could find at one point. And I get that, but they're like an hour and a half, and it's like, and they've been making that drive, and sometimes they do it. It's crazy, and I do think that sometimes the dips in quality, it's less apt to happen when you can respond right away, figure out what's going on. You don't put it off to the next morning, then maybe you forget the next morning, and shit just rolls on. So it is pretty cool. But that must have been a big drawback of that. Was it hard to try to find that work-family balance with being so close? Because I feel like for anyone, it would be easy to get just so roped into that project and just keep it going all cylinders all the time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, having a family, you want to spend time with them, but then you have a business, which is also like your family, and another baby that you want to nurture and take care of, right? You know what I mean? Like I said, trying to do easy things to myself where it was like, hey, set this schedule, only work these hours, right? If you have to do stuff after, you have time to do stuff after, right? You know, I'm close enough to do these things where, again, the kids go to sleep, I can go to work for a couple more hours at night, easy peasy, right?
Yep.
But at first, when I was building, growing, family, that was really, really tough. There was no time for anyone. But now that everything's kind of settled down now,
How long has it been settled down for now?
about 2 years now.
Oh, 2 years.
Yeah.
With this setup, it's been running pretty succinct.
Yeah, so I have it perpetually moving. Like I said, the day I take down a harvest, we clean that room out, spick and span, and we get new plants in there. I should say I get new plants in there that day.
Yep.
No time down, right?
Yep.
And it's easy. Just a big circle in my space, right? So the bedroom feeds flower room 1, flower room 2, flower room 3, you know, and it runs nice and smoothly. And when you can have everything compacted like that, you can save time on things too.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So that helps a lot.
It's that choreography that you create within the garden, right? How things move all around. And is it that fun too, having designed your own grow?
Yeah, definitely.
To that scale too, because there were probably unknowns. You were growing at a smaller
I come from a family of tradesmen, right? So
Yep.
electricians, sheetrockers, framers. I've done all that type of work. So getting into a big open space and then seeing to build a grow room, that excites me, man. I love that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That gets me going. I'm like, okay, because you got to make it right, and you just want to do it once too, right? You know what I mean? I don't want to go back and be like, oh, I should have done this, that, or the other thing. So, luckily, been growing for this many years now that I failed so many times that I go, oh crap, don't do that again.
Yeah.
Awesome lesson to learn, right?
Yeah, there are those lessons, and normally it impacts efficiency the most, and how you adjust for that too. That's pretty much part of it.
I love failing. I'm telling you guys. I learn more from failing with growing than I do succeeding because it's simple. You fail, you ruin something, you know what not to do again. And if you do it again, that's your fault, man. You didn't learn and you didn't pay attention to your plants. And sometimes you need to fail to get ahead.
So you said you've been using Coco since day one, basically.
I started using Coco in 2008 or 9 is when I started. I had some plants in soil, which a lot of people do, and I'm not knocking
Before
soil at all.
2008?
Excuse me?
Before 2008?
Yes.
In soil, okay.
And my buddy was like, hey, you ever try Coco? I was like, no. You're at that point where you're like, let's try whatever.
Yep.
And I had soil plants next to cocoa plants, same genetics. And it was night and day difference as far as the growth was concerned. Mm-hmm. The soil was just much slower.
Right.
And
it usually delayed quite a bit in veg, which really slows that process down too, right? Like we were talking.
Yeah,
the jigsaw
exactly.
You put together.
Exactly. And then you need to use bigger pots sometimes if you want bigger plants, where cocoa was like the opposite. Get these big, beautiful plants in these small pots and just feed them a lot, right? Mm-hmm. I now have so much more control over the plant, I felt like, that I kept just using Coco. And as I've gotten along, as I've moved along, it's the medium for me. It's not for everybody. I know some people don't like it. Some people love it. But for me, it works perfect for my setup right now in medical. But if I was going to go rec, I'd probably go Rockwool.
Like the grow
Rockwool.
cubes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just because the numbers are different and you can run more numbers in rec.
Right.
And
because you just you're vegging for such a small period of time. Everything's like a stalk, a bud, everything's a top at that point. So
rip it
easy
and flip
for,
it, baby. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and this is why I say I'm very open-minded. I love cocoa. But if I was going to have a rec
you
route,
locked yourself into a business plan, into a business model with your name. Are you going to have to become La Rockwool Nostra?
What's that?
Are you going to have to become a Rockwool Nostra when you go rec? It'll have to be your recreational account.
For right now, I'm going to ride the medical program as long as I can. If rec ever happens, I'll worry about it then, but I'll always be open and honest too. You know what I mean? So transparency is key. We were talking about that earlier. We wish, sometimes just any businesses would be more transparent. So like for me, always want to be an open book, man.
Yeah.
Like when it comes to La Coco Nostra, like that's why I always I want full garden shots of my room. I want you to know that it's clean in there. You know what I mean? I want you to be able to actually see the bud, see what's going on without actually coming in, but as much as possible, show you. I want you to almost feel like you're in my garden through the Instagram a little bit.
Yeah, you do post a lot of like we're getting a lot of the tops, we're getting a lot of the body of the flower room sometimes, and the beauty of it, like setting it above it. That's what you like showing off, the tech and their response to how you're growing them.
I think you posted. Are you the one that posted something? This is to piggyback off what Carrie just said, of a way of like spraying the room, or it was like a type of sprayer or something like that.
Oh yeah,
so yeah, that
just
was
today.
That
right.
was just today.
Yes,
yeah.
okay. I was like, because
IPMs.
I had quite a few people show me that, and we're like, what the hell? This is so cool.
So yeah, that's a Nutrifogger, and I needed to step up my IPM game, but it wasn't
In the IPA game.
Yeah, it wasn't because I have issues or anything. It was just like, every once in a while I'll get thrips, and I think it comes from like a batch of cocoa. It's just things we deal with as growers, right? And you go in there, you spray, and if you don't get everything, then it could be a pain in the ass, right?
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You leave one left, and you think you got it, and the room looks great, and then a couple weeks later, a couple little specks again.
Yeah.
And finally, I was like, I'm done with this. Like, I need a fogger, man. And then I ran into that, and I ordered one. I'm a frugal guy, so it was a hard buy for me at first. But once I got it up and running, and just another tool that fit in right to my program, I like to be efficient. Nothing's more efficient than that for IPM.
Yeah, no, it
How
looked
often
really
do you
cool.
end up? When do you run that? When are
So
the
I'll
best
do
times?
that for I'll fog the room out once a week.
Yep.
Just as preventative now. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So every Monday morning I get in there, I touch my button and I close the lights, and I come back in a couple hours, I flick everything on, and boom, we're good. I mean, you see the fog in there, the coverage on all the plants.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
one can compare to doing that manually. You know what I mean?
Can't. No, you can't.
So it's just another tool to throw into the game to save time.
How long
a
have you
little bit
been
of money.
using them for? And how long you been using them for?
This is a brand new product. I've only
brand
had it
new.
for about 2 months, and I usually don't like rep or like try to
Have you
talk
had good
about stuff. 'Cause
results?
it's not like they're giving me free stuff, so why should I say it?
Maybe
But-
they will.
but
Let's.
I'm really
that.
impressed, and the
Click the
guy
link in
who
this
owns the
bio.
company was a class act. He just did the right things like that a business should do. Called him just to have a question. He said, "Hey, did you start it?" I said, "No." He goes, "I don't want you starting it until you call me and we go through everything together." Like, that was impressive to me. I was like, wow, thank you. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you don't get business people like
You
that
don't
all
get
the time.
that kind
No.
of service. That's what separates them already. So props to them. Good. So how often? So you've seen results off that. This new, you said for 2 months.
Yeah.
Anything coming back to you? What are you thinking?
Well, what I love about it is I used to heat treat my rooms. Between,
Is that jacking it up in
Yeah,
temp?
I saw it get it at about 130, 140 degrees. And the heat treatment, the heat will just kill any spores or anything that's in there. The bugs
Yep.
can't. If there's anything lingering in there, it just won't survive. A lot of people ask me about that. And I'm like, it's just an old greenhouse technique. It's nothing new. But you still got to be careful with getting a room that hot. This fogger can also use Xerotol now. So then I can just put it in the room, press it, and now the whole room gets Xerotoled instead of heat treatment. Beautiful, right?
Yeah.
Time, money,
Yeah.
and
So you
safer.
can stay away from having to do that. Yeah. Is it like how many hours? Like 3-4 hours of blast, or what'd you say?
Well, it's 3 or
Normally?
4 hours you want it at that temp. But you
Yeah.
got to remember now, you got to get up to that temp. And sometimes that takes a few hours to get to the 130 or 40. If
Yeah.
you think like, oh, I've done it for 3 hours and I just hit 130, well, you're not doing exactly what you should be doing. You want to get to that 130, start the timer. You know what I mean? Otherwise,
Hoods.
you're just...
I know.
Hoods and a short ceiling would really heat up quick.
Oh yeah, I'm also
yeah.
thinking that almost is a little sketchy. That room must feel real hot.
Yeah, I mean...
130 degrees is pretty fucking hot.
But you got to remember, wood's not going to combust. Don't quote me on this, but I think it's like 600-700 degrees. So be smart, but also, know what you're doing. And it's not that dangerous. I don't know if we should delete this, but I don't know if we should tell people this.
No. Well, Mike and Emily over at Maincraft Cannabis talked about their incident with aphids, not rude aphids, but aphids, and they used they had to get the temperature of the room with plants in there up to a high temp, and you really jeopardize your plants. You're constantly watering them to try and fight it, but they needed to get it to over 100. I think it might have been 1 or 110.
So yeah,
Not
you're
sure.
right. A long time ago. Well, maybe not a long time ago.
So it's
I don't know if you guys
common
are,
enough practice.
Yeah, well,
it has been. And
you guys familiar with broad mites?
no,
I've heard of them. Yeah.
So when broad mites first came out, it was like people didn't even know what the heck was happening. And I remember
what was it doing to the plant? Broad mites.
So the broad mites, people thought they had bad batches of newts, bad cocoa, bad soil, and what happens is the plant just starts curling up and like blistering and not growing. And what happens, these things are so small you can't see them. They're getting under the inside of the leaves. And the way people were treating them at first was like you were saying. And what they had to do was you had to get in there, get the room hot, 110 degrees for an hour, but with the plants. The plants can deal with it, but 110 is a lot for them. But it's effective. Very effective.
It's
but
just
it's not gonna
scary to think you're blasting your room, though. That's the thing. You've got to believe in it.
That's why I always think keep your veg room as clean as possible.
Yeah.
Put your most time and effort into IPM and veg, because if that room's clean, guess what? Your other rooms are going to be clean, right? You know what I mean? Like if you're starting with good stuff with no problems,
So
you
if
should
you're
continue
into
to have no problems.
Rockwell, if you could get into Rockwell, holy cow! They like the opportunity of not having
That's
issues.
I think is the biggest plus of it too. Is that it's so like, everyone I talk to has been like, this less time you're in veg, less chance of any problem. The quicker you can turn around, the less chance of something happening and really affecting something. Only thing that's scary is it's just like anything else with all those little plants close to each other. If one thing has it, it probably spreads like wildfire though, in those big rows too. So
Well, yeah, and
quicker
it just
recovery though.
It takes
Quicker
one bug that
recovery.
sticks around too, right? And it's just like, oh man, like I thought I had it, and you're feeling great, you got it all clean again, and then oh god, what a terrible feeling. So working really hard on always keeping that veg room clean as possible. And like you said, I know the turnover, but for me, like I have moms in there that stay in there for a while. Right. So you know what I mean? It's just everybody's situation's a little bit different. Yeah. So for me, it's like,
well, and I even think a lot of big grows would have to have, even in some room, there's going to be a plant that's not cycling through that often. There's always going to be a mother plant for the most part. So unless you're doing like, tech like Jungle Boys and stuff, where I think they have like tissue culture and all those type of things separate from their actual grow that they use for like micro propagation or whatever the whole new wave of thing is now. But for everyone else, I think most people have mother plants.
Yeah, I think there'll always be the school of thought to go both. I think you'll always have mother plants. I think I've known gardens and it makes a little bit more sense to me as time's gone on, but I wasn't a big proponent of taking clones constantly. And I always thought that degraded the strain. Do you have thoughts or one direction or another? Like the alternative to not having
I've
a mother
heard that too. I don't know. I
is
have
by
no input on that,
continually always taking cuts and feeding it through. And I've always thought that having a mother was better idea. But lately I've been hearing counters to that.
The one thing I have heard is some people have been like, well, I've been running this stream for 18 years or something like that. And, or what about 92 OG?
Yeah, how do you run something for 18 years?
Well, question about 92 OG. When the hell did 92 OG come around? Because there were so many OGs before the 92 OG, and then all of a sudden, like in the 2000s, all of a sudden it's like, yeah, I've got the 92 OG. Yeah. I'm sorry, but where the hell did that come from? Not mad at anybody. I'm just curious because I'd love to know.
Yeah, some guy just created it and it caught on like wildfire, and he probably still sits back and laughs and goes, I'm the first one that named weed 92 OG, and everyone's like, yeah. And he's like, little do they fucking know.
As far as the cuts degrading, I don't know, man. Honestly, I think plants get sick because of their root system. That's where things start. That's where problems happen. So if your plant's healthy and you're taking cuts off a healthy plant, I would assume that it's fine.
Yeah.
But that's my bro science from my perspective.
My bro science.
I could be wrong, right? Because sour diesel, there's a cut that, doesn't seem like anybody can really get her to shine like she did back, 10, 15 years ago.
I don't know. That's becoming folklore to me now. I don't believe it anymore.
Is it just
you guys
the
are
weed?
all hyping how good sour diesel was back in the day.
Well, is it a thing like, is the weed just that much better today that our memory of 15, 20 years ago?
More nostalgic?
It definitely, when you see the evolution of what weed was like in the 70s and 80s and 90s, there's obviously been multitude of improvements.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So to guess that, I would assume too, because I think of like just like the guy that used to buy weed off of, you know, and he used to have the gas. And then all of a sudden, now you're buying some gas, and you still see him once in a while. He's like, "Yeah, check out this shit," and you're like, "Oh my god, this is what I used to buy back in the day from this guy," you know, like and all this stuff. And I'm not talking like nothing like nothing.
No,
I'm talking like the guy you used to go, like,
just talking it.
like eighth dude, you know, like the guy you go hit up for an eighth once in a while that always had something on him, and now that he still has something on him, but it is trash compared to what you can have. And it's just the truth of the matter. It kind of sucks, but because he's a nice guy, you know, he's got to put food on the table.
When did you start? How many years did it take for you as a grower to figure out that, hey, I'm a pretty good grower? When did you have the confidence in believing in like decisions
right now after you just told me?
Wait, well, I assume that there at some point.
I'm my own biggest
having
critic.
Confidence to invest in yourself in that craft, it doesn't strike me as something where you're just, you know, it's not the idea of just putting out a product. You want to put out your product, a good product, signature product.
Yeah.
By strain selections and different flavors.
Of course. You know, like I want to be confident without having an ego, right? You know what I mean? And
that's a balance, isn't it?
Yeah.
We talked about that a lot, or we felt that too.
It's like being a leader without being a jerk at the same time.
Yes,
you got to find a way to tell someone how to do it, but like we're doing it together.
Right.
I feel like it's a fine line that a lot of people walk, but you know, that's a great way of putting it. You have to be confident without having an ego, and you see sometimes that the balance with some is just way off.
The ego can get in the way of the confidence.
Well, and fast money hinders that, you know, and if you think about that too, it drives the ego.
Exactly.
And then really, without any, and then when you have a lull or you have a down moment, or when you know,
so you think
when
it
gets
comes
down to
from
the gritty,
finances only, though?
No, well, I think for some people it motivates their ego. I think the general money aspect of like how much capital they have and like assets and everything, their big operation can really, you know, inflate someone's sense of being. And then it's hard too, because then they get used to like a cushier, you know, sometimes
you get
something
too confident.
Softer. Yeah.
And then that's when you get relaxed.
Exactly.
That's when problems happen.
So yeah, I think it's just a cycle sometimes that people go through, but a lot of like, I think people to learn and grow from it for sure.
That's why I say failing is a good thing in the weed industry.
Mm-hmm. So it's diligence.
If you're willing to learn from it.
Yeah.
So it comes back as
we could keep growing
to
plants.
diligence, doesn't it?
One plant
Like you
dies,
have
Carrie,
to stay on it.
You could do it again, man. You know what I mean? Like,
say what?
If you kill one plant, guess what? You can grow it again. That's why I say never be afraid to experiment and fail, because it's the only way you're going to learn with these plants. Mm-hmm. And now it's cool because we're getting more technology where we're getting like numbers. These are facts, not bro science, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's cool to have that. But we had to live off our bro science up until a couple of years ago. You know what I mean? Before all this technology got really good.
Yeah. Yeah, there's been much more of a supply, and what was only a West Coast thing has become more of an East Coast adaptability and servicing too, and that's the biggest deal.
We were talking about the other day. I got that shrimp subscription, something I thought I would never do, but now I can see how my plants are eating in real time. That's like an invaluable piece of information for a grower, because then you know when and what to do at the exact moments, instead of you going, I can read this plant. This plant feels me. I feel you know what I mean?
Yep.
Now
is it confirmed or affirmed through the new technology that you're using? What your gut instinct used to tell you about a plant? You see that?
I will say, one of the things I'll see confident, my instincts have been pretty good, but not perfect. You know what I mean? So now that I see the numbers, I know where to adjust things easier and quicker. Where before I was like, I was right in the ballpark still though. But now it's just, you're going to save a little more on water, a little more on nutrients. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's hopefully going to make an even little bit better of a product.
Yeah, the more refined or the more in-depth you get with it.
If I can hit the numbers that I'm exactly trying to get, I have a lot of confidence that things will get better. When I'm just kind of feeling it out, I got to sit and wait and see what happens.
Are you bringing new flavors in continuously? Have you been doing that and introducing them into the garden like almost on a regular cycle, or did you go monocrop on something here just recently?
So I've been doing a lot of monocrops lately, but that's only because I have the 3 rooms, so I can keep
them in play.
Yeah, so
keep them rotating through.
You know what it is with the cocoa and monocrops with the rooms I have? It's a pain in the ass to have 4 different strains in a room and feed them all differently. Because then I run the risk of only half the room comes out good because you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I find I can run maybe 2 plants, but they better eat very close to each other, right? So for example, I've got the cherry cookies, and the only thing I'll run with the cherry cookies is the cherry dog. You know, if I were to run
Similar
cherry cookies with the chem dog, one of the flowers isn't going to turn out that well, and it doesn't make sense.
How come it's not going to turn out well?
Because the cherry cookies are going to want to eat like a pig, and the chem D is maybe going to not want to eat as much, but want more EC or ppms, right? But now I'm just doing one thing for both of them. One's not going to be as happy as the other. So with the monocrops, it's just easier to give that plant exactly what it wants, and I feel I can get better quality out of that strain by doing a monocrop.
That's what I think is sometimes the biggest challenge of such a big room. It can lack a variety, because like you were saying earlier too, I don't know if you guys were bringing it up just a second ago, but like the runts and stuff like that. Yeah. Some of those small differences that you do have to make and adjust between different strains can be really challenging to navigate in such a big room. You know, you really have to find groupings that work together.
Yeah,
which can take time and money if you think about it too. In such in any scale, trying to find something that works together means that you could be going through how many harvests before you find something that's really in sync.
It takes years sometimes.
Yeah, that's kind of that's got to be costly to anyone.
You do off-site for like nursery style, and when you're searching out genetics.
What do you mean, like
or
like
somewhere else in the barn, like a different part of the barn where you look into phenomes or seeds?
No, so I'm pretty maxed out on my space as far as So you were asking about the variety before. So I've got some genetics. I've got I don't know off the top of my head, but 10, 12 moms.
Sure.
And I rotate them, obviously, in a room. So I keep it enough. And the other thing, too, is and this isn't like trying to be, I think I have some stuff that like just not a lot of other people have, too. And that helps me tremendously.
The Jell-O.
The Jell-O, the cherry cookie, the wedding pie, a couple other ones, and that helps big time. Genetics are huge today.
Yep.
Genetics is what keeps a guy like me alive and working still, man. You know what I mean? Because if I'm sitting there with the same thing as everybody else, I was like, I was saying to you guys, it was like, there was that time where there was so much GMO going around. It was the only time a store was like, hey, we love you, but we just don't need any more GMO.
Well, it's
I don't want to be
mimosa too. Do you know how many times it gets shown like, and it's a lot of the first stage growers, and it's kind of funny because I feel like that's what everyone started with too, and I see that now. It's like sometimes people that just have started and it's mimosa, and I'm like, oh wow. In some
it
points
feels
I
like a
needed
reintroduction. Because we saw that about 3-4 years ago, kind of. And
a very
it's
big
okay.
push on that, I think, because that was like a, who is that? Compound Genetics? I could be completely wrong on that. I for Mimosa.
Yeah,
I'm not sure, but anyway, that came out. It was like wildfire. It was almost better than GMO. Although they came out
almost better than GMO.
Like no, not as far as like for my personal opinion, but I feel like as far as the initial hype. Mimosa hit really hard for a decent amount of time. I mean, granted, GMO's been holding on for, I don't know how long.
Maybe it's partly because we didn't have that. I feel like Mimosa was our first orange heavy front, like pungent.
I hate orange weed.
You don't like it at all.
No,
my least favorite tasting flavor.
I think you're right, too. That was like some really crazy smelling stuff, that Mimosa. They definitely knocked it out
flavor wise too.
Unfortunately, it's like your favorite song that got played on the radio every single hour. You just got sick of it, no matter if you loved it or not. I feel like
I've never smoked it.
Never.
I'm just not into orange
I've
weed.
only
really.
smoked it a couple times because it is such a strong sativa that like we're talking about. I don't know, just makes it shaky.
What flavors are you into? What do you like smoking?
I grew up on chems and sours and OGs, man.
Yeah,
that's where
definitely.
I am. And then one of my favorite strains that I wish the stores can carry it, and I wish it was more available, was the Piff, the Haze. They grew a lot of it. It was, back in the day, it was a lot of Haitians and Cubans. They would grow it down in Florida area, and it would work its way up to New York. And as kids, you get it, and that is stuff that still to this day, like strength and taste wise, I think. If you can get good patches of that again, that would still be on par with any of the top stuff today.
Yeah.
So Haze, OG, sour, chem, yeah, man. And then for the newer stuff, man, the cherry cookies is phenomenal in the flavor. It's one of the first cookies that I was like, God damn, I like cookies now.
Yeah, you told me that. You told me that. It had been a long time coming where you were somewhat resistant. What won you over with the cherry cookies?
Just being unbiased, smoking it and going, yeah, this is good. Who cares what it's called or where it comes from? If it's good, it's good. And that's how all weed should be judged by.
Back to the haze.
Yes.
Does haze grow in a better environment? Is it a better outdoor plant? I've been thinking about this
So as far
lately.
as I knew it was a big like indoor. I'm sure you can grow it outside too, but it was more of an indoor style plant that went 90, 100 plus days. So I would think probably in Florida you can grow it outside. Here you couldn't ever dream of it. You know what I mean? But it was more of an indoor variety, I believe, for the East Coast.
90 day. How do you justify that? Like, what's the return on it outside of the? So it's the uniqueness of it, right?
In those years, the price of weed was just a lot more, $6,000 a pound. You know what I mean? So,
damn. Wow.
$400 or $500 for an ounce of that, really good. It used to come in different batches. I'd seen it. You know, you'd have a guy who come through and he's like, "Hey, I've got haze, 6 different kinds," but it was all the same haze. Just different grades. Like I was saying before, somebody just did a better job of growing it than the next guy, and there was a price difference in it reflected. And
it's good marketing. I think it's always fair to play that way.
I mean, back then, that's just what it was. Yeah. Otherwise, beat it and you're not getting anything.
You knew how the rules were.
Hey, I'll tell you what, if somebody still has that haze, I'll give you $500 an ounce for it right now.
Well, you would.
I would pay it just to have it, and because I know how good it is.
You tend to have a little bit of a nostalgia. You've been a smoker for quite a long time of your life, I'm thinking.
Long time.
Yeah. In your teens, somewhere around there.
Yeah, sure. Definitely. Yeah.
And what do you like most about? Well, I kind of lost my thought there for a second.
What do I like about weed?
Like what is it that you like? Yeah,
right. Man. As a kid, I smoked it and was like laughing hysterically, so happy, you know, and I was like, God, I feel great. Then there would be times I would smoke and, you know, we all have stuff going on. I mean, in high school, who cares? Like, not a problem. But at the time, I'm like, oh, I got so much going on. And I hit the bowl. And then all of a sudden I'm sitting there. I'm like, what the hell was I worried about? Yeah. Right. You know, and having ADHD, you know what I mean? Like, it's helped calm me down. And for some people, like, oh, it makes you lazy. For me, it's helped me calm me down, help me focus and like stay on task to that task instead of working on this task a little bit and then going to this task and then going to that task and then going, I just made a huge mess. Like, what am I doing?
Yeah. No, I feel like it's definitely beneficial to some people. Like, I've talked to like a lot of people that I think in your position too. They're like, cannabis has helped me more than like Adderall or anything else. You know, all these other prescription drugs. There are really a tremendous amount of people that I think have found minute benefits from cannabis. Not like anything big or life-saving necessarily, but stuff that helps their everyday life. You know, and it's much better than a lot of other things they could turn to.
And I was saying to you guys, the edibles, I love them now. You know, I've always loved edibles, but now I've been really every night. 50 milligrams because you know what? I get the best night's sleep. I stay asleep and I feel so refreshed in the morning that why wouldn't I want to feel like that and get the benefits of that?
The edibles before bed is the biggest seller, is it not? Like in my experience, have you noticed like the purpose for edibles? That's the number one that I think definitely remember coming across.
That's a lot of reasons for people to do it, for sure. And also people that maybe just don't want to smoke, you know, like in general. There's a lot of like athletes or
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and I mean, we can go down the list of other things it helps with, but I don't know about you guys, but for me today, and if you're going to be like, what's the thing I like weed most? It helps me sleep. It helps me stay asleep. Because if I don't get good sleep, I mean, you guys know we're not the same person, right?
No, you don't run don't run the same. Yeah, you don't operate the same.
What about you guys? What do you, I mean, you
know,
both
that's
smoke?
funny. I usually just smoke like joints or, you know, and I'm mostly that way, but I've been reaching into edibles here and there every so often, a little bit more than I used to ever.
Yep.
And I want to see what the attraction is more. And so I've enjoyed it. I had it the other night, but I didn't do it where I wasn't trying to do it before bed either. Like I didn't want that hit yet. I don't know. I just wanted to test it. So where the hell was I? Oh, the lit girl party. Right. That's what it was.
What about you, Evan?
No, I mean, I don't know. I think cannabis is like more of started as like a social thing. when I was younger. And like, I think the same with a lot of you guys, like no one really smoked by themselves when they were younger, or maybe didn't start out. And maybe there are some people that did, but for me, it started with like a group of friends. And that was, I think, the first introduction. It was like kind of like almost like this, passage into young adulthood, I guess you could say. And we're like, oh God, 16, 17, I want to say. And it wasn't like we were smoking all the time, but that was like the first time I probably ever, smoked cannabis.
Everybody throws down $5.
Oh my God, exactly. That's 100%. And so, and then it advanced, obviously, like, and I just dabbled in it once in a while, but then like, I started smoking as I got older more often, but it really was a social thing for a long time. And now I think it's just more so like, I don't consume as much, but it's because I'm not smoking with as many people and doing that. It's maybe like we did today. We just roll a joint, everyone takes a couple hits, and then we do other things. So
I find myself using it more and more. But I smoked last night, but I was out near the lake, and it was just the idea of being in a different environment. It hit me, and I only slept 6 hours, but it felt like a good, refreshing 6 hours.
Yeah.
So sometimes getting 6 at a time, that's nearly impossible. So,
So with you in particular, do you have any plans on trying to scale up? Has that ever crossed your mind or anything like that, as far as maybe even potentially like a retail location? I know that's something that some people really have been looking into.
Well, I personally don't want a retail store. I really enjoy growing product and working with the stores and letting them sell the product. For me, I feel like that works well for me, right?
Right.
Having a store would just add so much more work to what I already am doing, that the retail side of things is not for me. Mm-hmm. And I really enjoy working with the stores and building these relationships with places and getting to know people better and learning more from these people as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You like going on the road. You like hitting the stores. We talked about that before.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, I got my delivery days down. I'm going to see mostly the same people every time. It's cool. I look forward to it. And, I think
Brings
they kind of look forward to it.
That's how
man.
this happened, too.
I hope they look forward to it, too,
Yeah. Yeah, because we got to, I think it was early 19 is when we might have met the first time over at
Yeah, that's how I got introduced to Sensimilia. Was actually you hit me up and were like, hey, we're looking for vendors, let's talk. And
God, I forgot what the strain was. Do you remember what
Do-si-do.
it was? It was Do-si-do. That's right.
I remember. That's awesome.
Thanks. I'm glad you did. Okay.
And I've worked with the same stores now and built relationships with these guys and these women, you know what I mean? That like, I feel comfortable doing that. I like being the grower. I don't want to be the store.
So do we have anything? We were just talking about strains. Obviously, you started with Do-si-do. Right now, what are you up to exactly? Some of the stuff that you're running. Maybe I don't know.
So lately, I've been crushing the Jello.
I really liked it.
Everybody's been giving me a really good
reviews on
review about it, and I'm just like, you know what? Let's give the people what they want. Yep. I like smoking on it too. Mm-hmm. And I love that it's got that kind of some of that old school gassy OG to it.
That's exactly that's what I was thinking.
The OG
also
that came through for me.
But it has that new dense gelato look to it a little bit. You know what I mean? So it kind of mixes the old with the new.
So it also changed the structure of the plant a lot.
What's that?
Or did it take on OG structure, or did it?
Yeah, it grows like an OG.
Oh, it does.
It's like a more stout OG. Mm-hmm. Not as lanky, but more like girthier in the stems. And as far as other strains, cherry cookies, cherry dog. The other room, I'm about to run a room of Triangle Kush Tangy. That's orange weed. So even though I say I hate orange weed, I still grow it and I will smoke it. So
where's your distaste for orange weed come from? Because I know what you're saying. As much as I want to warm up to say like a captain's cake, I have a hard time because it's orange weed.
Right. It just, I taste it and I'm like, ugh, I don't like that taste. It doesn't mean it's bad. It doesn't mean it's not good. It doesn't mean it doesn't get me the effects I'm looking for. It's just my personal preference is not orange weed.
Purple?
Yeah, I have no problem with purple weed. I know it got a bad name about, purple weed doesn't get you high. It just looks pretty. It's like, I don't know, man. I've smoked some really strong purple weed. So I'm not a hater on purple weed at all.
When you first got genetics back when you first started, it was just grab anything, or did you have a connect?
In that respect, I'm absolutely blessed in life to get the genetics I have. I've never asked for anything. and I've just been at the right place at the right time, meeting the right people. And it kind of snowballed into my first mentor I ever had was this woman. Her name was Buttle on IC Mag, and she kind of she was like older than me. I was younger. She treated me like an adult. You know what I mean? So it just I kind of lost track. Sorry.
No, that's all right. You were talking.
What was the topic again? I'm sorry. I started thinking about my friend because I haven't seen her in a while. I was like, oh crap.
The topic we originally were talking about, like prior to the selection of strains.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. So Buttle gave me cuts, and she was already in the community, right? You know what I mean? And she kindly gave me some cuts, and it just kind of rolled into, hey, you can hand this out. Don't do this. You keep this one, but you can do whatever you want with this. And I always kept them healthy. I always kept my word on things. And, it just grew from that. And that after a while, I had friends who maybe weren't growing, but I was constantly always growing. And they'd be like, hey, I got some genetics. I'm going to grow in 6 months. Will you hang on to this? You can have it, but just kind of get a few snips once I get my thing going. Because they know Dan's going to take care of it. He's not going to mess around. If he's going to throw it out, he's going to let me know before he tells me. And I've got handed some really nice stuff over the years, and I'm grateful for it. And it's always come to me without asking, too, which is the other part I find extremely funny because I sit there sometimes and I'm like, holy crap, how am I growing this?
Yeah, how did I get to this point where I just went with genetics that I had at one point in the whole process?
I always just ran with what I had. I've never gone to anybody, begged for anything.
So when you can start
people
growing
would
what you
just
want to
hand
grow?
me down things, be like, dude, good job. Hey, can you hang on to this? Hey, and a lot of times people test you. They're like, here, I'm going to give you this. Don't hand it out to anyone. Back in the day, if you got a good cut, everyone wanted to be the man and hand it out to everybody,
There was a lot of trust between people, and that's one thing that really hit it home, honestly, about summarizing how close you had to be with someone and how in you had to be with someone to really try to take some steps forward, because these were things that they also normally got handed down to them and then originally are now awarded the privilege to give out to someone else. So it's kind of cool.
But that was one of those rules that got broken more than it should have too, right?
For me personally, I'm okay with whatever cuts do whatever. Right. But if somebody asks me to hang on to something or not do it, my word is strong. Yeah. And I'm going to do that. And if people don't like me because of that, or they can't get the cut from me because I kept my word, I can't do anything about that. I'm going to stay to who I am and keep the character I have.
It's fed the access and fed the relationship you have with the people who are giving you some or working with you with genetic selections anyways, right?
Any projects in the works?
So as of right now, I want to make a couple more seeds. I want to reverse the Jello because she's been so good. I'd kind of like to see
what's inside.
Yeah. So my next project will be reverse her, make some more seeds, and maybe try to find a couple phenos from that. And again, keep the uniqueness of my garden up to date, right? Because at the end of the day, it's like I have Jello, right? Oh, not a ton of people have it. If I got it though, anybody can get it, really. Yeah. So it's not like I'm going to be the only guy in town with these genetics this whole time. And it's important to keep making genetics, finding genetics, and keeping things unique and new.
Yeah, you're right. I agree with that. I always thought, or there was a time when most of the genetics that we had were kind of California fed, it felt like.
Yeah, for sure.
And so when that movement went away from it, and I've noticed it more and more, I mean, there's still a heavy California impact, but it feels like there's also a lot more going on with breeding locally, kind of locally.
There's more breeders today than growers.
I think I think we
really.
It feels like it.
For sure. They're definitely popping up. Instagram, I think, is the biggest, reason why, because you can really make a lot of money off it I don't really know, but you can raise your followers pretty quickly and gain a lot of clout overnight by one little seed. And now everyone knows where that seed comes from and they can go ahead and purchase it right through you. Yeah. But I mean, I do think
that's the trick as a breeder though, isn't it?
Yeah, honestly. But I do think I agree with what you said though. It seems like a lot of the breeders were out west. That's where, a lot of these hype strains came from, and they made their way to the Western facilities for maybe testing or who knows who, or at one point maybe these guys all were a tight-knit community like us, even on a larger scale. And so it gets there first, and then it almost gains some hype as it's being sold to everything over here in the East. So now it's changed a little bit. You have, like we're saying, breeders everywhere.
It's a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing.
Why?
More genetics are cool to look through, but also, making so much stuff and not testing it and giving it out, I don't think that's fair to the customer or the person even testing it, right? You know what I mean? Like,
what was his name over at Cincinnati? The guy who came in and was trying to sell us seeds there. He's like, you got to carry my seeds. And you got any? Yes, that's what he was willing to have the conversation, but man.
He was like, the whole conversation was something like.
But it was funny because it was about a breeder. He's a breeder too.
Came in,
He's included in that group.
I've been breeding
so you
these
got the full
seeds,
spectrum.
and I'm like, oh, out of where? And he goes, out of my house and at my apartment in Lewiston. And I said, oh, okay. And then it advanced on. I said, so wait. He goes, I'm just trying to get everything stabilized. And then anytime we ask him about anything, he goes, I'm just trying to get everything stabilized right now. We're like, yeah, we get that. And he'd be like, no. I'm stabilizing everything, stabilized.
Well, can I ask you guys what your definition of breeding would be? Because I say it online all the time. I'm like, I closet hack. I just throw things at things. I don't know what I'm doing sometimes. I just do it for fun, right? I do it to preserve genetics because I know I can't hang on to every cut I ever had. You know what I mean? But to be able to go back in my refrigerator and be like, hey, man, I really want to try some, just for example, strawberry cough again. Hey, I got strawberry cough crust Stardog. I can always reach back for those genetics through the seeds, right? But it doesn't make me a breeder.
Right. You know what was really cool? Something that I saw is there was this kid that I used to know, or I still know, and he had like a seed collection. But the coolest thing he had was like these massive totes, like thin enough where he could fit like a 7-gram jar, squat mason jar basically in there, and it was filled with all different types of weed labeled with it, and he used to keep it and try to keep all of them, good and without molding and stuff. And it was quite the collection. I think he had like 75 different strains with dates on it, all like 5 years old, and stuff like that. And it was pretty friggin' crazy, to be completely honest. A lot of it did end up molding over time. It's just how it happened. There was a definite cycle to it. Some of it he just couldn't keep up with Bovita, and there's too many humidity dips or changes of environment. But the whole concept of being able to do that somehow, and we've talked about it before.
Well, you're talking about like stressing out the plants?
No, I'm talking about like creating a collection of cannabis, and being able to keep it for a long time. Like, how cool would that be?
Yeah, that preservation beyond Bovitas.
Well, if you wanted to preserve it for a while, I would put it in a jar or vacuum seal it, and then either put it in the refrigerator or a freezer.
Yeah, I've been hearing a lot of freezer talk, and I didn't believe that.
Well, everyone thinks it's going to be like wet. Because it freezes, and all it does is gets cold. So, and I know this because like when you you get your lowers and your sugar trim and stuff. Yep. I always put it in my freezer until I go do my drop off to keep it fresh. As soon as you take it out of the freezer, if you were to open up the bag, it's cold, but it's still dry. It's not moisture added to it. You know what I mean? It's just preserving the trichromes.
Yeah. Interesting.
And putting food in the freezer does what? Preserves it for longer, right? So
yeah, it does. Yeah, it will. A proper temperature, I would think too, right? It's got to be held.
If you were going to put a gun to my head and say, "Hey, I want you to preserve this weed so it looks like it does today and a year from now," I would vac seal it and then put it like in a dark black bag, and I'd put it in the freezer, and then I'd have you come back in a year and hope you'd be happy. But I think it would really help hold it rather than just leaving it in jars in a dark basement or something.
Would there or could there be a different way of preservation? Should more interest be put in how we could preserve?
I think it's cool. Like now I'm like, I've always thought, we've always talked about too, how cool it'd be to have a selection of like old strains, like really start like buy 7 grams of each strain or something,
Yeah, get like the old school, I want 7 grams of sour, 7 grams of strawberry cough, 7 of haze, 7 of chem dog or whatever, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Just pull together a menu that people could pick from or play. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. I want to get back to it. So what is breeding?
Good question.
Like to me, what you said kind of defines the type of breeder I expect now. from the area because you're looking into what you're trying to reverse or what you're trying to create.
I feel like back in the like 90s, I remember everything being like F5, NL5, BX7 or whatever, like things were like, seemed like they were worked more, where now things more just seem to be just like, here, let's sprinkle this and see what we get. And that's cool. No, it's done a lot of good. I mean, how many great genetics are around today and people enjoy because people did things like that, To me, a breeder, though, is somebody who I get the seeds from. I shouldn't say this, but like in my idea of thinking about it from back then would be like, you would pop seeds and they would be pretty uniform. Not all exactly the same, but that to me would be breeding, right? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Whoever was providing that as a breeder, you'd consider a breeder.
Yeah, when you work it for that long and take that time to do that, I think that's true breeding. Now, when I do something like, hey, I'm going to reverse something, or I'm going to just find a male from here and hit up a tent of some of my clones. Yeah. To me, I'm not breeding. I'm preserving genetics. Like I said, there's a lot of times where I've been like, hey, I love this cut, but she's costing me money sitting here and not being ran anymore. How do I preserve that? Make it into seeds. So once it's in a seed, what I do with it after then can be considered maybe breeding if I keep working on it. But right now I'm just a pollen chucker doing hack things. And if it works out, great. And if not, you know what? Move on to the next one, right? But I've hit, man, the ChemD PKs, those are great, man. You could just take any of those seeds, pop 10, find 6 things, 7 things that you'd be like, oh, which one do we keep, right? You know what I mean? And then I have ones like Sourdove to Stardog, which I was like, I can't wait to pop these like right away. Worst fucking weed I've ever grown.
That's too bad.
Yeah.
That cost would have been great. That would have been great.
And the more you talk to people too, when they like you have these crazy strains, it always is like the free pack that was thrown in with the 5 packs that they got. Like they bought the 5 seed packs and they got the 1 seed pack for free, and that 1 seed pack was the best or something like that. It's always those great, and then the ones that they expected to do well are just shit. So it's always that fits the narrative.
Good reason to like not pay attention to the names too. You know what I mean? Because I think people get swayed by
100%.
Just a name of something, So
you throw runts on anything, it's gone.
So yeah, we were talking about that. So what do you think? Is runts that like a new benchmark in the sense where we've had heavily impacted from a larger, like what Gorilla Glue was before, what Blue Dream was before, what MOB locally grown was before.
I love all those weeds, by the way, too.
I know.
Yeah, right.
Mob, Blue Dream.
There wasn't a bad time with them. Northern Lights in this area for outdoor was great. That's the first name, one of the first names I ever learned.
I remember getting Northern Lights, and that had something that I don't get out of a lot of weed today. It was so piney. You remember piney weed? I feel like that's just lost today. You know what I mean? And
well, it seems like a lot of people want that gas. It's either gas or fruit. That literally seems to be the two. It's not even cookies anymore or anything like that. It's just, those are the two things people want. Because cookies almost can be, I feel like cookies and dough flavor can sometimes almost come across as a little earthy to some people. It's like a mint chocolate chip. A little more subtle of a nose to me. And some people are scared of it, I think, because of the fact that it can smell a little earthy.
Yeah, I think also, and that's what everybody has to do, is they have to represent what strains they want to be associated with their brand name, right? Like the Coco Nostra is going to have these strains, and you don't want them popping up everywhere, but inevitably they're going to make it into the market. You just don't want it to be the one that, like you said, you're the 7th grower who comes in this week who's got GMO or whatever it might be,
Right. It's not a knock on any other grower or the stores or anything, right? You know what I mean? It's just that keeping things unique and different is what keeps people coming to these stores too, right? You know what I mean?
Consumers still like everything new under the sun, or how much are they looking for what's familiar too? Like,
I mean, I think consumers like a wide variety for sure. And every store is definitely is in competition with one another, not necessarily in a hostile competition, but they're always keeping an eye on each other and trying to make sure that they're trying to do things to attract a customer to them, because the market is so hot and it is over. I already think right now it's becoming oversaturated. So it's a war of who's going where, you know, and who's going to be more loyal to the customer. And the easiest way to get people in is if you look at the display case and there's 30 strains, you know, people are like, oh my God, that's overwhelming. It's like now you're in a candy shop, you know, and then you start lingering and all that stuff. And lingering shopping is, you know, can drive sales right through the roof. So there's a lot of aspects of, I think, having a wide variety that's important for consumers.
I mean, personally, you're going to tell me, hey, you can go to the store with 30 strains or 5 strains. I'm going to go to the store with 30 strains first because I'm going to have more selection to look at. Not to knock the store with only 5. They might have all be 5 knockouts, but to hear that I can have that many options, I'm walking in that store first.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I don't know. I've been back and forth on this, but you made a very convincing argument there. That makes a lot of sense, because I thought like maybe cutting it in half. I like this, as long as maybe you even go a little bit more with the rarity of where are you going to find this flower elsewhere in the state, that kind of thing. I don't know. That's the only way I can think.
I think there is a healthy balance, though, between that and your brand and your representation. There are some stores that have like 50 to 70 strains, and all 50 to 70, unfortunately, are considered like a mid-grade compared to some other stores. So there is a healthy balance. You know, I think your 30 to 40, you can guarantee that there's probably going to be some good contenders in there. Once you see, you know, places with just unbelievable numbers, there's a little bit of questions going on. It's like, all right, well, you know, where's this all coming from as far as like the quality of it, you know?
True, right. But I will say this about Maine, and I've been cross country and, you know, out of the country. These are some of the best growers and some of the best weed I've ever come across anywhere I've ever been. Like, honestly, some of the growers in this state would succeed anywhere they went. You know what I mean?
One thing that really baffles me,
but that gives us the consumer a ton of really great options. Like you say, you know, you can go into the store with 30. There might be 25 fire strains on that list, and it's because this state has so many terrific growers. And I really think it's one of the biggest advantages Maine has compared to other states. I mean, you get people coming from out of state to come here because they want so-and-so. Or I saw somebody, you know what I mean? Like, it's impressive. It's really impressive. Kudos to all the Maine growers out there, honestly.
Yes,
like,
yes,
really.
No, for sure. I think one thing I thought was really interesting is when I went out to Colorado, and anytime I went to a dispensary normally out of state, I mean, they're a bigger, you know, it's more corporate at that point too, more of a bigger infrastructure. It seems like the cannabis is always dry. I know that sounds like a stupid like observation, and everyone I talked to was like, yeah, the bud's so dry here compared to like Maine. And I always wonder, why is that the one biggest complaint, is that it's dry, it doesn't have a nose. And I wonder if there's some delay with how the laws are written, or I think in some states it has to go to the distribution facility first because that's what assesses the tax. But I'm not really sure. I mean, it's rather confusing, I think.
I'm sure the traveling, I'm sure ambient temperatures, you know what I mean, can make, say you're probably a lot drier in some of those areas, right?
No, for sure.
So
honestly,
naturally the bud might get like that. I mean, like I said, that's the thing in Maine. Like, these people really care, right? You know what I mean? Like, they're going to make sure when they come to your store that it's the best that they could have done to their ability before they bring it to you. Like, not everybody, but a lot of growers that I know.
For craft. You're looking for craft.
They go over and beyond a lot of people I know from other places and times, and it's amazing, man. It really is. Like,
you know, we are experiencing like this. This is a once in a lifetime kind of moment to be in Maine for this moment with how good the quality is,
It's also kind of scary though.
Why?
To say that, like, you know, it's almost like, well, you know, you hope that everything that's going on is going to help continue the quality, you know, as hard as it does seem, it, you know, it seems like maybe there'd be some type of light at the end of the tunnel where we can maintain some sense of being able to have big prosperous businesses that want to succeed, but they also want to play by the rules and don't want to influence through bad legislation. And at the same time, keep a craft sense of Maine, kind of like the beer scene does. You know, no one really hollers at Bud Light. Granted, I have heard from the beer mama by following her a little bit that there is some lobbying stuff that does happen in the craft beer scene also. Yeah, but it does seem like there's obviously a healthy relationship. You know,
do you think the health of the cannabis, the interest in the craft cannabis is more sustainable because of the medical program and continuing to exist the way it is now? Like, we had that victory, in a sense.
Medical
where,
keeps guys like me going. I'm not a big facility, right? You know what I mean? I'm a one-man guy. It's very important. It's very important.
So this victory, how much you talked about maybe having to enter into the brack, it would have been probably a reaction that I think a lot of other growers would have felt, or people would.
I just don't want to not be growing. So it's why I've looked into it, right?
Right.
I haven't pursued it yet, but just keeping my eye on it because I love what I do. I want to keep doing what I'm doing. And I just don't want to fall behind either, right? I love medical. It should stay this way. Guess what, guys? Not everything works out the way we want it to. We've seen what happens in a lot of other states. You got to stay on your toes. Maine is stronger than any other state I've seen, though, keeping this medical thing going. And
it was really a cool thing to see.
It is so cool, man. And I talk to other people at a state, and it's like always the first, like, hey, man, you guys seem like you're real supportive local. You guys are real active over there. And I'm like, yeah, they really are. And not even me, man. There's other guys out there that do so much.
Yeah.
It's
I'm
amazing.
noticing-
They care so much. No one cares about medical marijuana, like their program, than people in Maine.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
I've been noticing a little bit more, and this is just something where sometimes I'll pull up data on the main podcast, and during that period of time when LD 1339, or I might have got those numbers wrong, but 73. Oh shit. Well, anyways, the number.
Yeah.
You guys know the one that we won, whatever it was.
The one with the numbers, yeah.
1939.
Spanish Armada.
Come on, I'll keep throwing
LD
these out.
1242, the one that blocked the changes, or
Yeah.
okay.
I believe. Yep. That felt good because now we have a chance to preserve and protect what this image and what our impact can be. We can, I would hope, only grow stronger as a medical program, because somebody asked me, like, where do you think is the best flower in the world? And I said, well, I don't know, like, what to really answer to that, because I don't know the whole world. There's that strong European. They've got a large influence on cannabis. A couple different countries that are cultivating countries out there, so they've definitely dabbled in it.
Yeah.
The people in Morocco.
We're not ready. We're not
Bless their
ready to
hearts.
make that total comparison yet. But if this were to exist, and like what we were talking about, this craft thing, there's no greater talent that assembled where it probably shouldn't have. See that go forward.
Well, speaking of like some legislation that passed through the bill LD 967, which doesn't mean anything to anyone, doesn't mean anything to me really, but it's about the approved bill to decriminalize all drugs on the 50th anniversary of Nixon's war on drugs.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool if you think about it. That in a grand scheme of things, because a lot of the non-violent stuff that happens is people end up getting in jail and stuff like that, and then we end up paying for it, and that's the end goal of it too, is like for some of these small things. And I think there's a lot of stuff in comments that get blown out of proportion, like, well, then you're gonna have crack. I'm from what I've been understanding, it's really small personal use stuff. For anyone that's carrying around like a 7-gram crack rock, you're probably still going to jail. It's not protecting those people.
No, and I honestly don't think it's a bad idea.
Right.
I'm with you in the freeing up some court space here.
Yeah.
For these people who are non-violent and really not doing anything, harming anybody but themselves, maybe, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So now it's another thing. Hey, you I don't know, you did heroin and then crashed into somebody. Yeah, you're going to jail and you deserve it, right? If you get caught with a little something, like you were saying, crack, whatever the drug may be, I don't think that person needs to go to jail. They need help. You know what I mean?
Right.
Jail's not doing it. So I think it's cool
Was
that
that
Maine will
just
take a
easy
different step
spots?
towards that. Yeah.
That's
I
all
hope
that was.
it
It was
doesn't
growing
allow
industry.
more dirtier drugs into the state. You know what I mean? Because I don't want that.
Yeah.
But I definitely don't want people getting arrested for dumb little things, and they should be more concentrated on bigger problems.
Well, I heard also too that it might open the door for legalizing, psilocybin and mushrooms and stuff like that.
That would be awesome. I huge
Would they
proponent
allow us
for
to cultivate it? Would they allow the individual or a growth in business to get
they
into
would
that?
I would think they would if they legalized it.
Yeah, if they legalized it, somebody's growing them, so it would probably
State operated?
Yeah, and honestly, I hope psilocybin goes through, because I do think there's a lot of medicinal properties and values
Yeah.
that we can find out about it. And,
you know, you can find out is start studying it too.
Yeah, let's study it, man. Why we're just like holding ourselves back from not studying these things. Like,
I think they are out in Oregon, though. They're really starting to invest in that kind of research.
But they should have been doing it 10, 20 years
you're
ago.
absolutely
That's my
right.
thing. I mean, I'm glad they're doing it now. But
No, they were more interested in LSD test on
monkeys.
No, on soldiers.
Oh, that's right.
I don't know what that one's called, but I found that to be an interesting
would
story.
that bill have any effect on our cannabis at all? Or I'm assuming not, you know?
Well, yeah, you know, my theory on this, I wasn't sure. Like, I put it up as a story on the main podcast, mentioning something about the decriminalization. What were their thoughts? Where they decriminalized it really quick. I feel like they're going to act fast on it, and I don't think they're going to allow it to be like anybody like, hey, you know, we're sort of a grassroots cannabis. We could easily transition for those who want to into, you know, making this a legit operation, easy enough. So who's got the contracts? That's what I'm thinking.
I'd have to ask. My question,
I think it gets skipped.
My answer to the question would be other places have enacted this, right? What is their outcome from it? Are they better off than where they were? Are they worse off? If we're seeing where, like, hey, Portugal, I think, did that, right? And where was it? Washington, Oregon, recently.
Portland.
So what's going on? Is that actually working for them? Because then I'm like, okay, now if it's working for these other places, give it a shot. But if you're not seeing positive effects from it, then yeah, you need to have a serious discussion about not doing it too.
No,
Who can offer that kind of data, though, without feeling like there might be a biasness?
I do think it's hard in areas like that have a bigger inner city that tends to have like a lower income. It's harder for those places to legalize it on a broader scale like Maine will, because if you think about a lot of that, it can metastasize to something that it shouldn't be. And that's what I think happens in those situations you were talking about, like in some third world countries where they have tried approaches like that to try to free up space, and it ends up getting way out of control. And it's just because I think sometimes it boils down to the lack of income, the lack of education, and then it can just really breed a bad situation, across of anything that's an inner city or what could be considered at some point a ghetto too.
Yeah, there's always that who doesn't benefit from it. Like, how's this cycle break? But I think I think we've always, like, there's been such an attachment between drugs and oppressive nature, to be honest with you, that to finally have it lift up, I understand that we want things to move fast, and I don't know if they ever will, if they're ever going to really kind of move in the direction we had hoped, because there are a lot of infractions and a lot of prisons that are full. I don't know. They built a business out of prisons. It's hard to believe. Like, what are they going to give them up for now? Do they become tours that you can go on? And what are we recycling? New housing? I mean, what happens? Low rates. Here, you can live here for $400 a month. You pay us. Sure, I want to stay in prison. I don't know. So there's always been this attachment to crime and under other people's control. And so we're new and acting together.
We definitely all think there's everything's in limitation, but you're right. It's just an overreach, I think, on a lot of stuff. For nonviolence, I think it creates a lot of debt that no one needs, on any municipality level.
I mean, why did we allow it, though? Why did we go so long allowing that to be the case, though, too? Why do we need to let them tell us that, hey, this is when, not to get too political on it, but, well, why do we let them tell us when? Like, when it's right and when it's wrong? We all kind of knew it was right.
Well, I think it goes back to what we're talking about, the stereotypical image we have of cannabis. If you think about what we thought of, like you were talking about, thinking someone could even kick in the door, it's because of, like, that's what has been ingrained. That was ingrained through, propaganda, essentially. A lot of stuff that even cannabis was bad, and I think a lot of the fear was that it was easy to put it on the cocaine was coming from South America, it was easy to put it on a culture of people and say that, the outsiders are bringing this into America and they're causing all this damage. And I think that's where it really came. It was easy to rally as almost in the sense of like for patriotism. That's what people thought. It wasn't even a war on drugs. It was like a war for America. That's what almost I think
it was the other country's fault, but we were the ones doing them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean? Exactly how it is. So
we were the ones fueling it. So
these dudes were just making a shit ton of money off us dumbasses that were all,
hey, we got like millions and millions of buyers over here.
Exactly.
This is a great market for you. You're going to love it.
That's what I think really fueled it too, is that, and there's a lot of money that they realized they're making and Uncle Sam's not. And that's what really makes them mad too. At the end of the day, we all know that. It all comes down to the dollar.
Yep.
They realize there's tax dollars they're not getting in on. It's leaving their economy and stuff like that. So it is what it is. But
we're going to get into a global weed, aren't we? How soon? How soon do you think that happens?
I don't know. Probably not for a while. I mean, you gotta wait for this federal thing to really.
Yeah, sure. Really,
it's great that they say, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. But no one's gonna not worry about it. Because it's still there. Like you just said. I think it was like before they were telling the banks, like, yeah, you could take you could take their money. And they made that clear. But when I went to go talk to a bank person, she was like, yeah, they're telling us that, but it's still federally illegal. And if they decide that one day we want to just charge you with it, they're going to get a racketeering charge. So they're not doing it until she doesn't care that they said, oh, well, don't worry about it. She's only going to do it once that law is gone.
Right.
And the only way. And I think that's the only way you're going to start seeing it be more global. Because there's just so much risk still.
Well, there's no way I think you could fly out of the United States without getting it federal.
Well, yeah, right.
Unless you like ship Maine to Canada, but even then, that's a federal. The border's federal, so.
Maybe for competitions, are you allowed to? You're obviously allowed to bring product over for competitions, right?
No.
Huh. I didn't
Oh,
know
that's
how that
definitely
worked.
not federally legal. So it's definitely just a,
So wait a minute. One of our guests went to Spanopolis there. You know the one. How'd he do that?
It's like speaking in shorthand. Well, you know the time. Well, and then,
everybody's protected here.
And then the guy, and then he did the thing over there, and you remember that too. And then you're like, oh yeah, and it's like what? Speaking of shorthand, I'll have to rat someone out, so that's the best way to do it. But no, yeah, I think there's definitely some weird things about the differences in state and federal laws. But anytime you're traveling out of the state, it becomes federal. The whole transport up from one to the other, that's when the federal government's allowed to take jurisdiction of it. So definitely bringing it to competitions, unfortunately, is probably definitely illegal. And that's just some of the risks that some people are willing to take. Granted, I don't think you're going to get a Fed charge for bringing a couple grams. And that's why a lot of people fly with it, because like Los Angeles Airport even said, yeah, we don't even care. You can fly out of here with it.
Yep.
So
yeah,
it's definitely relaxing, like on a countrywide scale.
Mm-hmm. Had a lot of people come up here though through other parts of New England and say they love the vibe up here. They love how free it feels for us to live around and
until winter hits.
Around it.
Until winter hits, and that's
we get to live where people vacation, man. You know what I mean? That's great.
No, that is true. It's like Florida, except not as hood. That's the cool part about it, and not as hot. Not as hood, not as hot.
No. I've been thinking. There's one question I've been starting to think about asking people who are. It's what the fuck matters to you right now? Really? What the fuck matters at this point in growing and being in cannabis? And it could possibly apply to a lot of other things. Like where have you found yourself putting your values? I guess what matters to me is running
a good, clean business, man. A transparent business where people could see me and go, consistency, right? You know what I mean? I'm not going to say I got the best in the state or this is the best ever, but it's like, hey, consistent, good. He always says what he's going to do. That's what's most important to me. It was when someone looks at me, they know what I am and what I'm going to give them, and it's always going to be consistent.
Well, the thing is, I feel like that a lot of people learn, and that it's if you say you're going to follow up. You know, that's like that. That's the biggest thing that it really pisses people off. Like, yeah, I'll reach out to you tomorrow, and you don't reach out tomorrow. You know, reach out to them. That's the biggest thing, and that's the thing. I think it speaks to consistency too. So,
yeah, it does. Yeah, that was a good answer.
Well, what matters to you?
That's the first time I've ever asked.
I like that's a good question. What matters to you?
What the fuck matters to you?
Shit. I think
it's a depth question.
I think always trying to figure out how adaptable and yet still be very involved with family. That the willingness you're willing, like what you're willing to sacrifice on one end or the other. And finding that balance is always big. And sometimes there need to be moments of sacrifice and you never know what comes of it from that point.
The sacrifices can be tough sometimes, man. Right? I mean,
but it's all worth it in
it is.
a lot of different ways because there's no quite similar ride that's going on right now too. Like this is pretty damn cool.
Very cool.
You know? So
how about you, Evan? What the fuck matters to you?
I honestly think you know, trying to find a work-life balance and, you know, build a career, I think is what really matters with a lot of people is, you know, trying to build something that you can do for the rest of your life or at least for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, right.
And also have a healthy balance with that and, you know, like kind of what you were talking about. It's like it kind of came down to it for a lot of us too is
you want a career that you love to do and you want to have it balanced with family and fun and personal life.
And that's what I think a lot of people want.
But it's not very easy to do.
No.
No. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
We appreciate you, Dan.
Thank you guys for having me.
This was a
Evan,
great
Care Bear.
time.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
No, edit that.
She's little big leg.
Where can people find your products? What shelves? Where's this happening?
All right.
Which means we're keeping that whole part in.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Well, a big shout out to the first 3 stores that I've worked with because they've been with me since day one.
Yep.
And that would be Atlantic Farms, Sense Amelia, because of you, and Kind Guy.
Great stuff down at Kind Guy. Always have mad respect for what they're doing.
Keith, Joe, those guys are great. You know, Atlantic Farms, Ian, Jackson, Rocco, solid guys. I just like them, man. And you know,
I've liked how they've operated in that market. They've done a really good job and well represented.
Yeah. I just like them. Good, solid, transparent dudes. And then Sense Amelia, like I said, you know, I got hooked up there because of you, Carrie.
Shit.
Someone came searching me. And I found you. No, those 3 stores have been with me since day one. I just want to say thank you because it means a lot to me, you know? And I won't get too further up than that. But the other stores you can find me at are Cure. You can find me at, I'm going to go through this real quick in my head. Sorry.
Oh, right. You want us to play background music?
Yeah, no. So Cure, Jesus Christ.
All right, maybe we are going to edit some of this.
Yeah, you should.
This is. Can we use some of this content for Patreon?
Of course,
charge people.
Yeah,
appreciate that. See, from day one, it doesn't matter where. I don't care the other places. We'll put them in the subtitles. All right, at this point, ain't no thinking on this one.
Well, you can also find me at Cure. You can find some product at Green Truck and the delivery service Joey Nugs 207.
Oh, nice.
And I do a lot of, like, as it started, a lot of these stores all started up here. I was south as a grower, a southern grower. So a lot of those things opened up later, and being a small guy. So I've tried to keep some business down south where I live because I think I should. And I think those guys deserve it. And
I'm glad you're throwing up this way, though.
Yeah,
Don't get me wrong.
I really try to...
I really like it for our market up here. I really enjoy when we have a great diversity
spread it out,
of
man.
what...
Yeah, because, like, why give it all to just one place? I don't know. Just give people access to it.
Yeah.
And, you know, you could pretty much find me from Biddeford,
up here into Lewiston, and that's enough. That's enough ground
for those
where
of
people
you who
travel.
didn't see that, he went from his kneecap up to his forehead. We'll throw that in, right?
I'm just trying to make sure I didn't forget any stores because I'd feel terrible because they're all so nice to me.
Yeah, I hear you.
I'll save it to you. You definitely did.
Okay.
I don't know which one, but I know that
How many
anytime you
stores?
go to list them out, there's no way. It's impossible to list them all when you're put on the spot like that. I felt bad for you the whole time. Who did that to you? Was that you, Gary?
Yes, I did. I thought I'd give a shout out. I don't know. You didn't have to.
That was
shout
that was his comeback after calling him Care Bear.
You want some of that?
Sorry, Carrie.
Somehow I go into Guthrie's and he's like, "Hey, Care Bear," and I'm like, "Wait a minute, what?"
He's like, "Who told you that?"
too?
I was like, "No, nobody." All
Shit.
right, I'll drop that.
No, it's fine.
I'll bring in my old Care Bear for you.
Yeah.
I'll give you a toy.
Which one? It depends.
The one I cuddle with at night every night.
Oh, that one. Oh shit! I'm blushing for those of you who can't see. Nice, dude. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah,
shooting the
Carrie.
shit with you.
Honestly, me and you can sit there and shoot the shit like for hours, man. So I appreciate you having me on. Like, I don't think I'm that interesting, so I appreciate you thinking I'm interesting to be on the show. And you guys have done a really good job here, man. I haven't listened to every episode yet, but I've listened to a few. And keep doing what you're doing,
You've
man. I
given
really
us
enjoy
feedback,
it.
and we really appreciate that too. And also being one of our sponsors, I really appreciate that too.
Yeah.
It's we're not trying to make too much, but we wouldn't mind giving back a little bit more, like what we can do, like really get out to people. And we enjoy having them here, and we'd love to have a party with you guys and just caregivers. And
I love the party. Let's do it, baby.
Caregivers and Care Bears and everyone in between.
I'll bring all the Care Bears.
Just have some fun, have a little sesh together and just enjoy the moment for a cannabis moment. No hype. We'll fucking give you beers and let's just have a sesh together with all kinds of people who just want to chill.
One thing I want to say, we were talking about the crafts earlier, and it doesn't have to be in there, but I just want to get it out. I'd really like to see the weed industry, the cannabis industry, kind of almost collab a little bit more on things like you see some of these breweries do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that would be really cool to see, and I honestly think it helps business on both sides. Because like we were talking about before, we're sitting there being like, well, who's going to get the customers to be loyal, right? Mm-hmm. I think you can have them be loyal to both of you, and I think everybody can work together and work on projects. I mean, not everybody's going to work together and work well, but
right.
It would be cool to see more collabs. Like you said, you see the craft breweries where the two breweries get together and make one. That's cool, man. And it shows, I think too, like people working together, sharing ideas, helping each other become better growers, better business people, better humans.
Yeah.
Yeah, really. It is. It's about being better humans out of it all. That's what the fuck matters.
That was the last thing I just wanted to add in there.
Yes.
That's what
You're a good hype man like that.
Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Dan.